Alright guys, so we are moving on to the final part of this painting right here, and so I used some darker tones to complete some of the buildings right here, which is on the right hand side, and I'm using the color pencil, this blue color pencil, to help me with some of the details on the right hand side. So you can see right there that the buildings on the right hand side are pretty dark, the esplanade on the right hand side, and again using this color pencil to help me with all these details and all these different kinds of details that you're seeing right now. So by adding details, that will give the buildings a more realistic kind of a depiction. And we have this darker blue, we have this light blue kind of color pencil that will help us to be able to have all these very nice kind of colors and highlights on the buildings, and just adding in a little bit more of those strokes in order to make the buildings look better, right? With all these different strokes of the color pencil and all these amazing kind of strokes. Right, so just using the black kind of color pencil, just trying to make sure that we have all these highlights and all these details in, just drawing in like something of the outline and everything like that, and just using the color pencil also to help us with painting, drawing the bridge. So you can see right there, the bridge is made up of all these lines that we just did using the using the watercolor brush, but you can see right there that we need to have all these stronger kind of lines, which the color pencil is helping us to actually have this very amazing kind of details that are now being added. So all these lines that are done by the color pencil will add more interest and more structure and more texture and more details to the bridge that is now being done. So you can see right now the bridge is actually coming a little bit more alive because of those strokes that the color pencil is actually adding it in. And you can see right there, even though the lines are not straight, but they are very alive, because I actually combine the use of color pencils with the use of watercolors. Right, so right now just using the brush to very quickly help with the painting of the purple tones, and then we will move on to the painting of the water to the right. Again, painting the purple tones just below that Art Science Museum and leaving white those areas, so just trying to touch up the bridge here as well. And right now we are moving on to the painting of the water. The water here is made up of a few different colors. We'll start off with purple, and then we will blend this purple with another color. Okay, so just very quickly make sure that we have this purple that is going to be blended with the orange, and this purple and orange is actually blending together very well. And so I use a light orange hue to paint the water, and then after that we will add red paint for the details of the bridge. We will see that later. Okay, so combining the purple with the orange for the water, so it doesn't matter if the water kind of like overlaps onto all the other details of the buildings, because that will be added on later. And we will make sure that we have the water as the first layer painted on first, before we move on to the painting of the details on top once this layer is dry. So we have purples on both sides, right? We have purple on the left hand side, and the middle part here is orange, and then on the extreme right hand side of the water we have that purple tone. So just making sure that we have all these colors in, and making sure that this part of the water is also colored in with the bridge that will be painted on top of it later. And so we have these purples, we have this orange, we have the combining of all these different colors, and just using the orange and the purple to kind of like it also depicts the sunset sky that we just did. All these color schemes are actually well thought out, because it kind of like combines well with the rest of the environment. Right, so using the brush, just trying to make sure that we have all these kinds of black paint and leaving white, and for the details of the bridge, and just trying to do this area first, and at the same time waiting for that area to dry, so that once that area dries, the area of the water dries, we can paint the rest of the details, right? So right now you can see that the water is dry, and so I painted those details of the buildings on top of it. And right now using some of these dark red tones to paint the details of the bridge on top of the water that we just did. And so right now you can see actually all these details are forming together very, very nicely with these reds and all these orange and all these color pencils like pinks and so on and so forth, and reds. And so we have all these amazing details that are formed. Right, so right now we're moving on to the painting of the base of the bridge. And so we are using all these dark colors like black and blue in order to paint this structure right here. And so we have like maybe 2 of them, and one on the right and one on the left. Okay, so we are gonna paint this area right here. And so I used the black paint and I used the dark blue paint to kind of like make sure that we have all these different kinds of blue and different kinds of dark paint, and again leaving white some of the areas which will be painted on later, because those are the lighter areas. And we'll use the brush to kind of like make sure that we have all these different colors like light blue and darks and blues that are painted in, as you're seeing right now. So again, we don't want to leave any to paint any structure with the same color, because that would be a very, very boring depiction, but rather use at least 2 or 3 colors to depict the same object with all these different colors. So again, using the purple, just trying to make sure that we have these structures in. Okay, so right now I'm just trying to show how these structures are being painted, especially when we have all these different lines that make up this structure of the bridge. And so when we paint all these bridges, it is important to make sure that we have all these different kinds of structures that most of which are actually stretching all the way down into the water. And so we would need to think how they can actually blend well with the water, and how the shadows are done, which we'll be showing later, and also how what kind of colors actually make up all these structures. As you're seeing right now, I'm using all kinds of colors to actually show all these structures and all these very, very nice kind of objects that you're seeing right now. So while waiting for it to dry, we will paint the other areas before we actually embark on painting the water. Right, so using my brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these structures in place. So we have some dark areas, we have some light areas. And so using my brush right now, just trying to darken all these different areas, and just trying to make sure that we have all these colors. So using my large brush, we are now embarking on the painting of the shadow on the left hand side. And so right here, this shadow is cast by the MBS building, and you can see right there it's pretty dark. Just using my brush to make sure that it goes all the way up to the shoreline. And using my large flat brush, I'm just trying to we'll use that large flat brush to kind of like show how this shadow right here is actually blending together with the rest of the water. So this will be the final part of the painting, okay? Painting the water, and of course some of those shadows. Right, so using the large brush again, same method as painting the sky, we're gonna use some of this orange in order to paint all this sky, all this water. And this orange right there is going to be combined with this gray on the right hand side. And this is very important because we will need to have all these different colors in place. And again, using my brush, just trying to combine these darks Okay, using my brush, again trying to make sure that we have all these colors and all these, you know, kinds of orange and grays and purples. Okay, so right now I'm just using my brush to draw in the shadow, right? So we have the shadow cast by the bridge, and so this is forming on the water surface. So right now just using my brush to try to depict all these different kinds of shadows. Right, so we need to have a very good control of the water, because we will need to control the way that it spreads out. So while it is semi-wet, that is the time that we actually add in the dark purple kind of tone, and while it is still wet, just using the brush to kind of like combine these different areas together, and then we will have some orange, and then we would be able to combine the orange with the darks, and this will give us some very nice kind of colors. And again, using that brush, just trying to make sure that we have all these different colors. And now right now you can see that the brush is actually combining all these different colors, orange and the rest of the colors, very well, because right now it is forming a very smooth transition. And right now trying to soften the shadow that we just did using that brush, and making sure that the shadow is natural. So we need to make sure that the shadow is kind of like sitting on top of the water surface rather than being separate, right? So by using this softening and blending kind of effect, that will help us to be able to make the shadow kind of like combine well with the rest of the water. Right, so as you're seeing right now, just using the brush to help me with the combining of this, you know, shadow with the rest of the water. And you can see right now I'm just spending a little bit more time here, because it is actually not an easy process, because the controlling of the water is pretty tricky, especially when its area is pretty small right there. So I'm just kind of like trying to work on that small little area, and also trying to depict all these shadows in a realistic way, just trying to make sure that it blends with just the right amount, by trying to control the content of the water. So right now you can see that the water is almost dry, and the paint is spreading just a little bit, and I'm just trying to depict the shadows on the right hand side. Right, so the shadows for this bridge is pretty tricky, but just trying to spend a little bit more time here to depict, you know, all these shadows, and yeah, just trying to blend everything together. And right now you can see that I'm using my brush to kind of like, you know, make sure that, you know, this part here is pretty well blended, and using my small brush, and also this large flat brush to try to combine these shadows together in a nicer kind of way. Right, so as we move towards the final part of this painting, you know, we've seen how we used colors to actually show the buildings, and how we depict the windows and the leaving whites and the dry brush techniques and all these different techniques, combining of different colors and painting of the water and shadows and reflections and so on and so forth. That actually gave us, you know, a whole repertoire of skills that we can actually use to show, depict all these urban scenes and urban landscapes. And these are some amazing and very useful and practical techniques that we can use, you know, for example, when we depict a scene like this, which is Singapore and urban landscape. And again, the shadow right here is being blended with the rest of the water. Just trying to make sure that everything is well blended, using the brush to help me. Just trying to make sure that the wetness and the dryness of the water is conducive for the combining of the paints. Just trying to complete this very final part here using my brush, and just trying to make sure that the entire area here is pretty, you know, well blended with the movements of my brush. And that's how we do all these shadows. Hey everyone, it's KY Tom here. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed my video, please hit the like button and comment down below. Do consider to subscribe to my channel for more art videos. Check out the links on the description below to find out more about my art, and I hope to see you in the next one.